The things that needed to be addressed much different from where they were a year ago.
Yeah, lost some really key pieces last year, more than were brought in for sure. And not to discredit Antoine Wells or Mario Anderson, but I think South Carolina has done a little bit better in terms of, and Mitch Jeter too. I think South Carolina has done a little bit better in terms of losing key valuable pieces this offseason, and also done a better job of bringing some guys in. So, as you mentioned, it's been very good first week for the Gamecocks in terms of hosting visitors, getting commitments, and so forth. So, really address some positions of need, and we'll see if they're the right guys as once September rolls around.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to believe it's still actually December, of 2023. Hey,
Right.
I know one of the things a couple of years ago, and by the way, if anybody hasn't paid attention, if you're listening and not watching, JC is here as well. Um,
Hello.
um, I know a couple of years ago, after I think it was after the 21 season, one of the things that this staff wanted to do, I know that Shane wanted to do, was spend a little bit more time at home at the end of the season, kind of dealing with the current roster, because you have to do that now, or you can't even really go recruit because you don't know what you're going to have to recruit. But I know after his first year, what they did was immediately they ran out, they got on the road, they were out running around, and they learned some things. And then last year they kind of, maybe stayed home a little bit more, at least adjusted their recruiting calendar here in December to kind of take care of some things on the home front. And I don't know that their portal recruiting suffered. I don't know that was why that happened, but it did. And then this year, they've kind of really been back out on the grind. I mean, just out flying around, seeing guys. And one of the things I've noticed, John, is they're taking like the entire side of the football with them. If they're going to see a defensive guy, every dadgum defensive coach is in that living room. Same thing on the offense. Is there anything behind any of that strategy? Have you spoken anything about that? What do you make of it?
Well, there's only a limited time that you can be out on the road, and there's only so many contacts that you can make with a kid. So, but you also want to leave an impression when you're with that kid. So, sometimes a coach has a specific bond or a better bond, or sometimes it's that particular player is really important to that side of the football. So, Shane Beamer's been out, visiting a bunch of guys, and he's brought, as you mentioned, staff members with him as well. So that does several things, including the assistant coach typically has the deep relationship, right? Like Shane doesn't know as much about these players as the position coaches do, which is normal. So that provides a little bit of an extra bit of knowledge in there for Shane when he's in there having conversations and so forth. So, but there it comes back to, there's only so much time that you have before dead periods begin and visits can end. We're now in a dead period, so coaches can't be out on the road. Guys can't come into campus and visit, so they had to squeeze a lot into a little bit of time.
Well, they've done that. And now you've got this crazy week that is set to happen here. I just saw a tweet a little bit ago. Think about this. We talk about this all the time, the timeline of everything, right? Like something needs to change. Carolina's not in a bowl game this year, but if they were in a bowl game, in addition to bowl prep and end of season meetings and all those type things, you'd be dealing with recruiting your own roster. You'd be dealing with recruiting transfers to your roster, and you'd be dealing with signing day. Coming up this Wednesday, it's 1 year to the day of the first round games in the college football playoff next year. There's no way, right, guys? There's no way that they're going to have signing day the week of the college football playoff games next season. There's got to be something adjusted, right? That's nuts. They can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the right answer is, because you also have to have time for players to get into the portal and make decisions before enrolling into class. We are we also have to remember that school piece of everything too. So, some classes start at different times in different places as well. Some start early January, some start later January. But, you have to be able to figure out the school piece of it too when balancing all of this as well. I mean, I don't know what the right answer is. JC probably has some better ideas than I do, but I'm at the point where you get rid of the early signing period. I mean, why? I mean, I don't know that that's really serving a whole heck of a lot. You can still enroll early. You're just not, signing a letter and putting another deadline out there. Just push it back into February like it was. And I don't know how much that solves either. I don't know what the right answers are. It's impossible when you're trying to balance so many things. When you're talking about bowl games, portal windows, high school recruiting, and class is something is always going to be getting the short end of the stick, and December is always going to be an incredibly busy time for coaches.
What if they
Not to mention the holidays on top of all that.
Well, exactly. Like, and that's the human side of this. I mean, even Shane has talked about this before. Like, guys, like I get it. Everybody wants to poke fun at coaches because we make a bunch of money, and well, you're getting paid all this money. You should be able to handle this, that, and the other. But they're still humans. They still have children. They still have wives. They still would like to, maybe spend a day or two around the house just being a dad. I think there's nothing wrong with that, no matter how much money you make, right? I mean, I know that in some people's eyes, at least the people on Twitter, but yeah, I agree. I think it's asinine. What if we've heard this before? Like, could you, JC? I want to make sure you're lumped into this here because y'all hear it from every side. Coaches, like some coaches might not like this because they don't get the extra 3 months to see a kid that's on their commitment list. They can't wiggle out of it. But what if you had an early signing period like in August? You just got it out of the way. I mean, what would be wrong with that? What are the pros and cons to that?
I like it because the kid can concentrate on his senior year and not worry about it. And a lot of these players nowadays, I mean, in South Carolina's case, they're basically done. A lot of schools are done by the time the season starts. A player can focus on his high school season, not have to worry about official visits and the pressure of making a decision because the pressure's there to get it done during the early period. Very few are waiting until the second one these days. The issue with that is you're going to have coaching change provisions. You're going to have a situation where if a young man signs with a school and his coach gets fired, you can let him out. Well, they already do that for the portal. Like they already say, all right, you're free to go if your coach gets fired. I don't see what the big deal is with the letter of intent, letting them out of that if that happens. So I like that. Dabo actually came up with that, believe it or not. Sign him in August. Yeah. That would take some of the pressure off. You're still going to have to recruit the portal during this time. You're still going to have to recruit your own roster during this time until something changes. But, I think that would help take some of the pressure to get the high school stuff in the boat right now away. And it makes sense because they've already, most of them already decided. There's not a lot of drama when it comes to high school recruiting during this time period these days, whereas 2 or 3 years ago it was. And it's all portal now. I mean, you look at the front page of 24/7 Sports, all portal. So I would probably try to do that and kind of maybe it would become to where, college football, for better or worse, most of your recruiting's done during the summer and you get it for the high school level and then you get it done and, maybe 1 or 2 here or there. I don't necessarily like that for the game because it sort of eliminates opportunities for senior risers. If you're a JUCO, I think you're kind of licking your chops, or a D2 school, because you're about to get some players that the big boys would have gotten because they're not going to be looking at that point in time. But if they're going to cram everything into 1 month, it is what it is at this point.
Well, let me ask you a question. Let me play host for a second. What would be the ramifications of not having a specific signing day at all and having players sign whenever they want to? say you get an offer in September, coaches feel good about you getting an offer. You go ahead and
That's
sign
right.
your NLI then.
Well, I think that makes the most sense. So let me bring something else into this, John. I know where you're going with this. First of all, we all know one of the answers to that. There's this thing called the media, and they make a bunch of money on it, which is crazy. But the other side, right? If we're going to continue to go towards this employee model, do you have an early signing period for 24/7 Sports? Do you have a signing period, or do you just get your contract and sign it, right? And that kind
Right.
of how it works. So that's
Right.
probably where this should be trending, but it's not. You don't get the glamour of National Signing Day.
Well, is there any glamour of National Signing Day anymore anyway? I mean,
No.
right now it's in December, right before Christmas, when everybody's talking about the portal,
Agreed.
and all of the schools are closed. Like there were signing days a couple of weeks ago. The kid and the Staley kid had one, I think, and signed with Tennessee, and people are on the Big Spur message boards talking about, well, we can't get him anymore. He's officially signed with Tennessee. He doesn't have. No, he didn't. He didn't sign anything. Like
Mhm.
he didn't sign anything that binds him to going there. They can't sign NLIs until that window opens on Wednesday. If you can't even get an NLI at that point, and if you had one, if you sign it before, I think it's 7 o'clock in the morning, or maybe it's midnight. If you sign it before that time, it's void anyway. So like I don't think that there's much to celebrate right now in terms of a signing day, other than just saying, these are our guys who we've officially got. I this is maybe every day could be a signing day if you really wanted it to be. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting to me. I think that eliminates early offers or uncommittable offers. I think that can take a lot of pressure off of a kid who's getting hit up by a bunch of schools but knows where he wants to go. Maybe like a Dylan Stewart, like he's been signed, sealed, and delivered for South Carolina without being officially signed for forever. But I can tell you, he's got everybody and their brother still hitting him up. If he were officially signed, then he wouldn't have to deal with it. So I don't know. Just some thoughts.
Well, I think you're on to something. I also, I mean, we're all big fans of high school football and high school baseball and basketball and everything else around here. I think it'd be something neat for the high school level if you were able to do this before the season. Kind of a kickoff to high school sports, something that gives these young men, these dudes, a chance to kind of have their day, and then throughout the season, you're checking your schedules and you're going, wow, will Berkeley and Somerville play on Friday night? Oh yeah, that kid that's going to Carolina plays. He's already signed. It's done. It gives them some notoriety. There might be something to that as well, John. I don't know. I do know this, that it doesn't matter which coach you talk to, whether it's Shane or anybody on that staff or Dabo or whoever it is. It doesn't matter. They all tell you the same thing. Like this is not good for us. This is not good for everybody. Like we've got to find a way to fix this. And I would imagine that a lot of these kids too, like all these kids that just committed through the portal, for instance, like I mean, it's hard for them. I mean, it's hard for them. But also they only have a small period of time because they got to enroll in class. So if you eliminate one or the other or move it, it's got to be signing day for the high school kids. It can't be for the portal kids. But
Right.
I don't know.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Speaking of the portal, the big names that are popping for Carolina, and they're not done. We all know that. Rocket obviously has kind of stolen the show over the last few days. And you look at a guy like Kyle Kennard who committed this past weekend. He's a plug and play kid. He's a great football player out of Georgia Tech. But dude, I'm gonna circle a couple of players now, and we'll come back to it in the spring, and then we'll definitely come back to it in the fall. But Gerald Kilgore and Juwan Howell are going to play at Carolina. Because, first of all, I'm going to make a big prediction on the Kilgore front that you're going to have the Kilgore brothers back there killing. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to go that far. But they're going to be back
They
there.
don't let safeties do that anymore, JB. They don't let safeties do
that. I know. They've got enough DJ Swearinger in them, but that'll get you tossed these days. But this kid coming to play with his brother. First of all, that's a neat story. and good for the family. I know they're from Eatonton, Georgia. And then the running back, Juwan Howell, coming up from South Carolina State. He's a football player, and I think that Oscar Attaway and Rocket Sanders coming in is a huge deal for Carolina. Those guys are going to play. We all know that. But there's no way I'm just putting this kid on the back burner. Like, yeah, he's coming from South Carolina State. Yeah, he's going to have something to say about that. What do you think, John?
I think when you're the best at something, that's a great thing. And you could be the best left-handed plumber in the state of South Carolina who weighs more than 250 pounds, and you've accomplished something, I guess. With Howell, he's the rookie of the year in the MEAC. Like, he's done something. He's gone out there and done something. I like the receiver from Coastal personally. I mean, he was Jared Brown. He was the Sun Belt Freshman of the Year a couple years ago. He didn't have as big a year this past year for whatever reason. Maybe it's new coach, whatever. But I mean, those guys have done something, and we've seen. Gerald, we've seen Jalen come in and have a great year. He's learned at safety. He's learned at nickel. I feel like Gerald's probably right in that mix too. Not only is he a good football player, I'm betting he's pretty sharp as well. So, I certainly like the look of some of these guys and what they've got coming in. And, some of the other guys have been at a little bit more prestigious programs or whatever, but these guys have accomplished something at the places they've been. And that's something that I like.
Well, JC, I want to make sure you and John are more in tune with this than I am. But I mean, it has this group, this portal group, again, that isn't done, has the feel of a couple of years ago when they, you know what I mean? Like you felt like they were signing good players, and it didn't really matter. Like, they were targeting guys and they were getting them. I'm not so sure that no I don't mean this disrespectfully at all to any of these guys. I'm not so sure that was really all the way the case, right? In this past portal season last year. But a couple of years ago, they went out and they found guys that didn't matter where they found them from. Adkins and Juice and all these guys. Clearly, they got Rattler and they got Stogg and they got all those dudes, but they were targeting good football players at positions of need, and they were largely able to get most of them. It kind of feels like another version of that this go around, regardless of where, like the Kilgore kid. I know he's coming from Tennessee Tech. That doesn't matter. He's a good football player, and he's going to fit in with what they're trying to do back there.
I think so. I mean, look, everybody's hating on last year's portal class, right? And look, it's because, Bell played for an undefeated team. Marshawn had a good year in a league where nobody plays any defense. Those guys, you look at them, Carolina struggled mightily. Playmakers outside of Xavier Legette and obviously running backs. Everybody's mad. Everybody's mad about Sidney Fugar and the kid from Charlotte who was a walk-on because, they failed in the portal doing that. Well, it's selective memory. You're not remembering Jackson Hughes came in as a walk-on, and Fugar has 3 years left and was not supposed to be a guy they were counting on to start. So the bottom line is what hurt them last year was lack of NIL money. Jordan Birch and Gilbert Edmond leave, and then JT Gear comes in and gets hurt, and Drew Tuiazama calls me to have the worst take I've ever had in my career. But they just didn't, there was just a lot going on with that class. I still think some of these guys they brought in from the portal last year, JT especially, will end up having something to say.
Absolutely.
By the time Josh Simon's going to have something to say about being at South Carolina, Mario Anderson in Memphis will probably start for them next year and have a big year in the American. It's just one of those things where so much happened to kind of. It's easy to go back and retroactively blame the portal. That said, was last year's portal class no? They missed out on a running back. They put the eggs in the Logan Diggs basket. It didn't work out. The other guy ended up going to Kentucky. He didn't really do much up there anyway, but they should have cast a wider net. But, when you don't have the NIL funds backing you up and you're worried about, because Marshawn Lloyd's out the door, because Jaheim Bell's out the door, because Juice Wells may go pro, Spencer Rattler may go pro, and you're like, man, all the good players are leaving, and half of them are leaving in the portal, and it's going to look like there's no money. But so you're trying to kind of, I'm not going to say they got caught off guard. I think a lot of schools got caught off guard, but the resources were just not there for them last year. They just weren't. Fast forward to this year, there's a lot more resources, guys. Do you realize that South Carolina's 2 collectives combined, and most of it's Garnet Trust because of the match, but combined, we've done $1 million worth of new business in December. That's new money. That's not old money. That's not money coming back. It's not returning money. That's new. So Gamecock fans have stepped up. I mean, for every malcontent out there that doesn't get it, that doesn't understand, like some idiots on Twitter I've been reading. Well, some idiot was like, "We need responding to Garnet Trust. We need transparency with the Juice deal before I give you any of my money." I'm like, it's none of your damn business because it wasn't your money that they gave Juice to begin with. If you're not helping, you're an idiot. And you go through his timeline, it's just like cussing at players and all that stuff. For every malcontent like that, there's 20 people that understand, that love the Gamecocks, that have
just
a brain
like Whittle.
that get behind it. So that's happening. So when there's more resources in the portal, especially when there's more resources, then obviously you're going to attract a higher level of player.
Isn't that you, John? Aren't you Gamecock for life on Twitter? Like,
it was
you rank your priorities in life, like God, kids, Gamecocks, and then your whole timeline is go F yourself. You missed a tackle.
Yeah. Just go.
That's right.
God, Gamecocks family, and they have a picture of them and their family, and then it's like just the most vile, ignorant, stupid. Like my opinion. I mean, I think people. I think that's why they call them trolls, because I think a lot of like your normal people that act normal in real life, they have an alternate personality and they become trolls on the internet. I think that's why they call them trolls, because they're like, they take on a character almost. But yeah, it's unbelievable. But it's yeah. Listen, I'm gonna tell you,
F you, Beamer.
If you contributed to Juice Wells coming back next year, right? And I think there's about 3 people that did, right? Then shoot me a PM and I'll tell you exactly what happened. Otherwise, it's none of your damn business. It wasn't your money. Period. Bottom line. I hope someday it is. I hope someday it is everybody's stepping in, but that just wasn't the case last year. So,
God's family Gamecocks.
God family Gamecocks. Screw you.
I won't pay attention to anybody on Twitter who doesn't use their real name. I mean,
I don't either.
If you're going to be on a free platform like that, like, I mean, it's one thing to be on a message board that you're paying to be a part of, and you're obviously invested in some way into what's out there and that information and that website or what have you. But any jackhole can create a Twitter account and just be a troll. I don't deal with those folks.
There's plenty of them. John, we were short on getting. I don't know, how do we do this every week? We're short on time again. John Whittle.
Well, I started asking questions this week. I know what the problem was.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, it's all good, man. You're the only one that can step in and do that. But I do want to make sure we get to basketball, because the Gamecocks have 3 games left here in 23 in the non-con, and then Mississippi State rolls in. In case anybody hasn't paid attention, their metrics have fallen off the table a little bit because of that win over Charleston Southern. It didn't look pretty, but they did win the game, unlike previous years when that was one that they would probably find a way to cough up and lose, and everybody would be in their feelings, and rightfully so. Carolina's got the second best record in the SEC behind 10-0 Ole Miss of all teams. Winthrop, Elon, A&M, but John, they escaped. Got to give CSU some credit. They were knocking down a bunch of shots on Saturday evening at the CLA. But not enough. Carolina gets out of there, and they continue to put numbers in the W column.
Well, I felt like I was watching a different game in real time than the folks out there who were commenting in our game thread on the Big Spur, or at least a lot of them. Like, I didn't watch a perfectly sharp South Carolina team. I mean, I didn't think that the Gamecocks played great basketball, but I saw a Charleston Southern team that was just playing out of their mind. Like, they were hitting contested shots. They were hitting them from everywhere. I thought they played great basketball, and Carolina didn't play great. They were coming off a week of exams and classes or exams and finishing up classes and so forth. Didn't have a whole lot of time. I mean, I didn't think that they were awesome, but I thought CSU was great, and I thought South Carolina made a few good plays down the stretch and made some free throws and sealed the victory. But like you said, South Carolina and every other SEC team are usually on the losing end of one of these games, each year or more. And South Carolina wasn't in this instance. And, there's three more to kind of navigate. And there's some things that you certainly want to see and do over the course of these next three games. I think you definitely need to figure out a way to get Colin Murray Boyles involved a little bit more, get his minutes up. I think there's some things from a rebounding standpoint and an effort standpoint on the rebounding end that probably need to be better, and you want to see improve over these next three games. But overall, I mean, can't really argue with where the Gamecocks are this season, and really after the 40 minutes the other night, because I thought it was more about CSU playing really well and way over their heads than it was about South Carolina doing a whole bunch of crappy things.
Yeah, they didn't look like a bad. I mean, they looked like a pretty good basketball team, honestly, coming into the game. But I never felt like Carolina was going to lose it. The only thing frustrating to me about watching it was the score. And it's because CSU Charleston Southern kept hitting shots. I was like, and at some point I let out an audible, "Come on, guys." And I started thinking about it. I was like, well, that was a shot. That dude hit a fadeaway jumper with Murray Boyles in his face that was perfectly on line. I mean, it was a very weird game. I thought.
Well, it was too bad. I'm glad you said that, JC. Not to steal your thunder there, but from the stat line standpoint, because y'all are right. That's kind of what I mentioned. CSU knocked down a bunch of shots, but then you go and you look at the box score. Carolina was 9 of 11 from the free throw line. They were 6 of 8. So you're talking about 19 total free throws in the game. That's it. The largest lead by either side was only 8 points. Carolina whipped them in the rebounding department by 13. They controlled the offensive glass. They controlled the defensive glass. Although to your point, John, there are some effort issues from time to time there. I think they're a little out of position. But then there was this one thing that stood out, and neither team turned it over, really. There's 11 total turnovers in the game. That's it.
It wasn't a sloppy game,
But you know how many – did y'all look at that? John, you probably know because you, I'm sure, have studied it by now. Phil, JC, either one of you look at the block line in this game? The blocks. Y'all know what they were?
I didn't look at that stat.
Well,
I don't remember, but I know Southern had a bunch of them, and several of them should have been called fouls. You had guys coming across, raking them like that. I'm like, that's a foul 100% of the time. Anyway, go ahead. Give us the numbers.
Well, it was 7-0. 7-0. So, yeah, to your point, I mean, there wasn't a lot of fouls called. Carolina didn't swat any shots. It was a weird game, like JC. It was weird, but they won. And they've – I mean, how many times have we seen this over the last I don't even know how many years. It's they find a way to –
You've seen them lose these, for sure.
Yeah, that I think in the past two games they've played, the opposing team has given them their best shot, and they have been able to still come away with wins.
You never
and
got
one of those is a road game.
I never got the sense like that Stetson game a couple of years ago, which poor Frank lost. I was just frustrated. I mean, that was just a game where you just kind of there was a sense of dread that came over you. Because you're like, oh God, there's a lot going on here. I never felt that way. Like, the only thing that bothered me about the performance was the score. I think in the second half, Carolina went a little cold from three. Michi did not have the best shooting night from outside. And I think they ended up about 6 for 21 from three. But I looked at the stats at halftime. It was like a 5-point game. And Carolina was hitting 60% from the field.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, go figure. I mean, we've seen some ugly basketball around here where Carolina in the Odom and Martin and Fogler and Horn era, and last year, they'd have like 16 points at the half. Yay. Hitting a cool 18%. That wasn't the case. And that's what's so weird about it. I was like, this is strange. And I don't know. The reason SEC teams have games like this, guys, and Keith also pointed this out, and it's one of the things I agree with him on, AAU basketball. You want to know why UNC Wilmington beat Kentucky? All right, have you ever been to an AAU basketball tournament and they get the championship game and the kids are crying on the floor because they lost or whatever, like in the NCAA tournament? No. These guys play so many games, and yeah, you want to win, and they want to win and all that, but it's hard night in and night out to get super motivated to blow somebody out of the water. And there's not that like, oh, we won by 4, at least we won, let's move on. Whereas 20 years ago, everybody's pissed off because they won by 4 against a team that was not good coming in.
Yeah,
I think it's just a different mindset, which is why everybody out there just needs to start being happy if they win in any sport. Because the art of the blowout is kind of like, and I don't know, there's going to be blowouts, but it's a win is a win because the mindset just isn't there all the time with this generation. I'm not saying they're losers. I'm saying, but if just like in the NBA, you play 82 games a year, you're going to lose some. Well, if you play 100 games a year because of AAU and all that, you're going to have nights where you're not going to get up. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, but
just stepped all over your segment.
Yeah, but you can't do that at South Carolina. You know that, right? You can't lose. Can't. Whittle. I was talking to King last week, like not on the air. Although he's going to be joining us this Wednesday on the air.
I can't wait for that.
I talked to King last week, and I said, King, you did a drill, man. You go 55-1 next year. They're not going to remember the 55. They're going to remember the 1.
I think there's some truth to that, but I'm waiting on them to go 56-0 and then go 0-2 in Hoover. So that's what I'm signing for.
Yeah.
No, wouldn't lose the game until they brought home a national championship. That'd be exactly how that would go.
Those are the old days. Those are the old days there. Oh, you're number 1 in the country. We got beaten Hoover. The season's over. Well, actually, no, it's not over. We still got to go host.
We may as well just hang it up.
Yep. We're bad.
Well, John, I'll leave you with this to get some folks excited about January the 6th. If they can do it, if Carolina can get through Winthrop, Elon, and Florida A&M, and if Mississippi State can get through Rutgers and Bethune-Cookman, CBS will be broadcasting at noon Saturday, January the 6th, a 12-1 Carolina basketball team and an 11-2 Mississippi State basketball team. Who saw that coming?
Not me, and I don't know if South Carolina would even be ranked at that point. Maybe.